This is Miss Cash. I wanted to make this video for you today just in case you're confused about the assignment that I left for you. So I wanted to do an example with you, make sure you understood what I was asking for, make sure you understand the instructions for today. I'll keep it brief, but hopefully this helps you get started. If you have any questions or if you just need it to go a little bit slower, feel free to pause it at any time and then hit play again later. All right, so today's assignment is to work on this packet called Function Families, which is right here for you. It asks you to use your calculator to graph the following functions, copy them onto the grid, and use a different colored pencil for each one. So I know you guys know how to use the calculator. We did it already on Friday, but just a quick reminder. All of these start with y equals. We are going to start there on our calculator as well. Remember, functions can start with f of x or with y equals. So once we turn our calculator on, the y equals button is right here. The very first actual button on the calculator says y equals. That's what you're going to push, and this menu comes up. Then you type your function into the calculator. So if I did y equals x squared, that would be my first function. Now, if I want to look at a graph of it, I recommend, since other people have been using these calculators, you may go ahead and hit zoom, which is right here, and then the number 6, because that's a standard zoom that puts you back in a 10 by 10 window, 10 across, or -10 to +10, both on the x and the y axis. So you can see you get a U shape. You probably called that a parabola back in Algebra 1. That is the correct term for it, parabola. And you want to get this copied onto your graph. But I'm not looking for just a real quick sketch. I'm looking for an actual graph. So I want to make sure that you hit second, table, and table is right here above the word graph. You can see me pointing at it right there. So you're going to push this key after second. And here's our table. I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit so you can see it better. And there's our table. Now, if I just started at 0, 0 and put that point on my graph, and let's see, on the calculator that was in blue, so I'm going to do this in blue as well with a little blue. Oh, that doesn't show up on the camera, so I'll try red. All right, you can kind of see that point. All right, and then my next point after 0, 0 is 1, 1. So over 1, up 1. Then I have a point at 2, 4. And a point at 3, 9. I know you guys know how to graph. That's why I'm going through this fairly quickly. But if you notice, all my points, even if I connect them with a nice smooth curve, are over here in the first quadrant. But when I looked at it on the graph, I had points in the first quadrant and points back here in the second quadrant. So if those points exist, I need to make sure I get those points on my graph as well. So back to my table, and I need to get some of the points that are in the negatives. So -1, 1. -2, 4. And -3, 9. That is enough points to have a good graph. Notice I put arrows on the end of my graph because my graph does keep going. If you look at your table, it keeps going higher. We just don't have room for it on our grid. So you have 4 more or 3 more on that page to graph. I'm not going to graph all of them. I think you know what you're doing at this point. But I do want to graph the last one. And the only reason why I want to look at the last one is because you notice how it says x squared and then there's a sign there and you're not sure, is that a -1 or a -1? Well, as we talked about in class last week, if it's between 2 numbers, you're going to use the minus sign. So I want to make sure nobody puts x squared -1 there, even though it might look like it. You're going to use the minus sign, which is in that row of plus, minus, times, and divide, and then put the 1. And when you go to make your graph, here's what your graph should look like. Oh, it looks like the old one, except it seems to be down a little more. So I would still use my table. I get points off my table, and I would pick a different color pencil. Let's try green maybe. and I'm going to graph that in a different color. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time telling you what these points are. You guys can read the points, but you can see the fact that I would do the same graph again, but in green pencil. All right. I'd also make sure I get the back side of the graph, the negative side. Okay, here we go. And draw that in there as well. So you can see that I have two graphs at very slightly different positions. You've still got two more to add to this graph. And then you have other graphs on the following pages and just a couple questions to answer. I want you to work on this till you finish it. Make sure you use good, neat graphs. Make sure you put your name on it and turn it in by placing it in the tray, the appropriate tray. Then if you finish early, because I have a feeling you might be able to, you have a homework packet. I gave it to you on Friday. There are extras up on the bulletin board in the homework folder. So if you have extra time, please work on that until the end of class. Excellent opportunity to not have to take any of that homework home because you have time in class to work on it. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Work hard, and I will see you tomorrow.